coverage you can count on continues.
Thousands of healthcare workers in Pennsylvania are in a state of financial limbo tonight. They've not been paid since the middle of December, and tonight they have no idea when their next paycheck will arrive. News 8 On Your Side consumer reporter Brian Roach has more.
Watching I Love Lucy Grams.
Landa Turner is a home health care worker because she loves to take care of people. These days, she's still coming to work even though she hasn't been paid in a month.
I fear, the next couple of weeks, what's going to happen if if they don't get this together, what's going to happen?
Landa is one of about 20,000 healthcare workers across the state who have not been paid.
Last year, the state welfare department made a decision to take 37 different payroll agencies that were paying all these healthcare workers and consolidate them into one.
The welfare department tells News 8 it made the decision to save taxpayers and distribute payroll in a consistent fashion. Public Partnerships Limited, known as PPL, the company that took over and is responsible for the new paychecks, which have yet to go out.
They're telling us that their systems did not match up, their databases were not matching up.
If you knew this process was coming, make the transition more effective, and that is not.
Connie Boland of Palmyra contacted 8 On Your Side because the healthcare workers that helped take care of her elderly mom have not been paid. All of the women have called the new payroll company repeatedly.
I have probably left over 60 messages. 60.
After News 8 On Your Side contacted the welfare department on behalf of Connie and the women who care for her mom, Connie was finally contacted about 2 hours later. She got a couple of answers, but the caregivers like Landa Turner and Tammy Aish still don't have their money.
It's frustrating. I mean, you put the time in and you depend on the paycheck.
Connie says she can depend on the women who care for her mom to stay on the job, but she's worried about other patients who may be abandoned.
The worker is not going to come to work because they're not getting paid. They have to go somewhere else to get paid. And then that person is alone with nowhere to go and nothing and don't know what to do.
In Lebanon County, I'm Brian Roach. On Your Side, News 8.
Since we broke this story yesterday, we have been receiving dozens of calls and emails from workers and their families.
And as consumer reporter Brian Roach found out, we're learning that some of those workers are not showing up for work, leaving their patients abandoned.
Ralph Tellerico has been a home health care worker for about 5 years.
Ready? Yeah.
Just about every day, he's with Eddie Wardell, one of his clients.
This is a big deal. These people are very afraid. Okay.
Ralph is one of about 20,000 home health care workers across the state who have received little or no pay for the last month.
One of my helpers just had a baby, and she hasn't gotten a check at all.
Just yesterday, Ralph discovered that another one of his clients had been abandoned by a health care worker who did not show up.
I went in, I guess, the next day, and she was there all that night and all that day that I didn't get in there. She was wet from head to toe. She had soiled her briefs.
Ralph says that even though he's received only partial pay and can't even afford to fix his broken glasses, he will not abandon his clients.
I can understand how people feel they don't want to come to work when they're not getting paid, but there's more than just work here involved. It's the human factor.
Do you want to cut?
Jamie Crump has been Marty Jamison's healthcare worker for about 3 years. She says she won't leave her client either.
And I'm not going to not come in and take it on her because they're not doing their job.
But worries about when her check will arrive.
If I get charged late fees, who's going to pay that? I shouldn't have to pay that. It's not my fault.
Healthcare clients like Marty Jamison say their biggest fear is being abandoned, and they want this problem fixed quickly.
Quickly is not the word. Quickly, yesterday's too late for me.
I would say please put yourself in one of these wheelchairs and tie your hands behind your back and get some of the feeling that we're feeling right now.
Again, to repeat what we reported last night, this whole payroll problem is the result of a decision in the welfare department to go from 37 different payroll processors down to one, a company called Public Partnerships Limited out of Boston, also known as PPL. Today, a company spokeswoman admitted to me that the transition from those 37 companies down to one is not going well. A statement from the company reads, PPL received a considerable amount of data that were inaccurate, and in many cases, PPL did not receive many required data elements at all. She's talking about those 37 other companies. The company also tells me, guys, that it has processed about 80% of its checks, these paychecks, and they are in the mail, as we've heard before. Meanwhile, we do know a lot of state lawmakers, reps and senators are getting calls about this, and some of them have even called us.
Tonight, an 8 On Your Side story that's getting a lot of attention. Thousands of healthcare workers across the state were not getting paid. Consumer reporter Brian Roach joins us now with some news about their paychecks. Hey, Brian.
Well, Ron, we're learning that some of the workers are starting to get paid, at least the ones that we talked to last night. Last night on News 8 at 6, we talked with 2 healthcare workers who had not been paid and 3 of their clients. Well, today I talked to them again, and they told me that within 2 hours of our story airing last night at 6, all 5 of them finally had their calls returned from the new payroll company. And this morning, the 2 healthcare workers tell us they got paid. Most of these healthcare workers take care of Medicaid patients in their homes. Last fall, the state welfare department decided to go from paying these workers using 37 different payroll providers to using just one, a company called Public Partnerships Limited out of Boston. Public Partnerships admits to News 8 that the process of combining the records and timesheets from 37 different companies has not been smooth. And some of the healthcare workers have been telling us they've been without checks for up to a month. Well, today a company spokeswoman issued this statement updating the process. It reads in part, "Yesterday we issued approximately 2,000 more payments. We have paid every single timesheet that is clear to pay, and we are actively researching every one that is not clear. We are very aggressively taking the necessary steps, to resolve these issues and clear for payment." As for the workers in our story who got paid, I'm told that every individual is being called regardless of whether or not their story is featured in the media. But once again today, we heard from more than a dozen healthcare workers and their patients who tell us they're still having trouble getting through on the phone lines to Public Partnerships. Partnership says they've opened up a lot more phone lines, and those that have gotten through have left messages say they're still not getting phone calls. So this story is still developing. We, again, are going to continue to follow this.
And clearly telling you about their story made a difference.
Well, tonight a state lawmaker says he is very frustrated with the situation and the lack of answers. Consumer reporter Brian Roach joins us now with an update on this story. A lot of response to this story.
We're still getting phone calls today by the dozens. Lancaster Representative Mike Sterla tells me that he's pretty frustrated because his office is not getting any answers out of the state welfare department, nothing at all. Sterla told me this afternoon that there is nothing acceptable about the state's 20,000 healthcare workers not being paid in a timely fashion, and nothing acceptable about what he feels is a lack of accountability.
Why are senior citizens and persons with disabilities, and in some cases the workers themselves, calling me and saying they aren't getting paid?
Democrat Mike Sterla says when his office started getting those calls more than a week ago, he started making his own calls.
We can't get a response out of the Department of Public Welfare. All we know is that people are suffering out there.
On January 1st, the state welfare department made a big change. Instead of using 37 different companies to pay approximately 20,000 in-home healthcare workers across the state, the department would go with just one company, Public Partnerships Limited.
Some people in the legislature voted to allow the Secretary of the Department of Welfare to promulgate regulations and rules and make changes without any oversight.
The company admits that it's had a tough time taking the records of 37 different agencies and making a smooth transition. Representative Sterla says this payroll problem will only lead to more questions about privatizing the state lottery.
They want to privatize everything, and once they privatize it, they don't really want to have anything to do with it. Well, that's okay as long as you get performance, but when something like this happens, it's incumbent upon them to say, this is our problem to fix.
The switch from 37 different payroll processors down to one was supposed to save money and increase efficiency. News 8 has been unable to get figures from the welfare department on what kind of savings we're actually seeing here. Sterla says he can't get an answer either, but we're both going to keep trying. As for reversing this decision, unlikely that's going to happen because both the House and the Senate are controlled by Republicans, the same party as the governor, whose administration made this decision. So a lot to follow here, and we keep getting phone calls.
Yeah, well, thank you for your hard work with this. Big
My pleasure.
response from this. All right, thank you.